Hi, Brea. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hey there, Julia. How are you? I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Thanks for coming on. I'm excited for you to share with the listeners. Again, your unique perspective. You have some fitness background that I think we haven't touched upon yet, and I'm looking forward to diving deep with you. So, for us to begin, I'd like for you to share with everybody kind of what you're doing in a general sense now. We'll back it up at some point, but what are you currently doing in the fitness, wellness, integrative health world?
Oh my goodness. Great question. It's more of what am I not doing? I have a little life ADD, as they say. I'm so excited about my work. I'm so excited about what I do. It's hard for me to focus on just one thing. So I just recently, actually last week, launched my group coaching program. So I was formerly a fitness studio owner, and I still do group fitness classes and stuff like that. Teach online. I have a YouTube full of workouts, but I've transitioned to more online. And so I've taken the fitness piece, and I've taken the integrative health piece, as well as spirituality and success mindset that's truly just changed my life by getting out of my own head and try to combine that in a program together for just overwhelmed women. It's kind of my niche that just, one day Facebook, Google, whatever says, oh, eat coconut oil. And the next day, oh, no, don't. Oh, you should do keto. No, don't. Oh, do this exercise, get this workout program. Oh, no, wait, don't. That's bad. Interval training. No, don't. So that's what I'm here for.
Yep. Okay. So you kind of fine tune it and make a more realistic, straightforward plan depending on, what they need. The information, I find that so many times with clients and even friends and family. They're like, what do you think about this? And every week it's like they're sending me a new article. What about this? I'm like, oh, geez, like that's just the newest fad. And it's so hard for people who don't have a real innate knowledge of this or don't dive into it the way that we have to kind of be able to focus their minds in one direction. And it's such a saturated industry where you really can get so caught up with, looking in 100 different places.
Yes, I most certainly agree. And that's kind of why I created this is I knew I was lost and I was dealing with adrenal hormone issues. And, I didn't know where to go. I felt like I was trying everything and doing everything, but there was so much contradictory information that I would try one thing for a week, a month, whatever, and it wouldn't work. So I jumped to the next thing, and I just never could stay consistent until I found integrative health. And that's how I got here in the integrative health world as well.
Yes. Okay. So I have a question about your online program. So have you always been online with your fitness training, with some of your, integrative health practicing? Is that something that's new? Tell me a little bit about the online and what you can kind of offer our listeners as far as information on that.
Yeah. So I owned a fitness studio, Foundation Fitness, here in North Carolina for 8.5 years. And here in North Carolina, our gyms were shut down for 6 months, 6 months of government shutdowns. So after trying to keep the doors open for 6 months without, clients, able to come in and all that stuff, I finally had to close the doors down. And, it hurt my heart because my heart is to help people. And that's kind of why I'm so all over the place. So I decided that I would go online, and my husband and I actually packed up and moved to the beach where we wanted to retire. It was just the perfect timing, the perfect storm. Everything came together. So all's well that ends well. But what I've been able to do is, like I said, create that group coaching piece, with the fitness and the success mindset and spirituality, as well as the integrative health piece, and just combine that all together. I've also, written a cookbook. I've got a YouTube workout library that's actually free. Actually, right when COVID began, one thing that I started to do is just live free online Facebook workouts. Literally, I was just working out with people, one, to keep me accountable, and two, just because everybody missed seeing each other. Unfortunately, I didn't do it Zoom where we could interact, but I called it Brea Step Unedited because my dogs kept knocking over my camera, and it was a hot mess, but people enjoyed it. I was just trying to be my real self, and hey, we're all in this together. We are all struggling. We all miss each other. So here's what I got.
Yes. Yeah. And just a place to stay connected. Everybody doesn't always have to talk, but just when you feel like you're doing the same thing and you're sharing the same goals, especially in a time where there was so much uncertainty, just like knowing that a bunch of women would show up in the same place at the same time to do something, that they all wanted to do was probably enough to kind of keep that community alive. So, okay, so that's interesting. So COVID kind of happened and you took that opportunity to move somewhere that you maybe thought that you were going to have to work a long time and, a long, hard time to kind of get to that point. You said retirement. And so you live somewhere, share with the listeners, because maybe not everybody necessarily needs to have kind of this huge 6-month government shutdown to kind of motivate them to do something that feels, really good for their life. But are you now in a place, I'm curious at this point, where you're really happy with the fact that you're virtual and where you're living? And do you kind of take this whole thing as a little bit of like a blessing in disguise?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I feel like when door, closes, more will open up. Sometimes one, sometimes more than one. For me, more than one. I'm able to teach at the beach on the bar. So that's not horrible. I love bar classes. I love teaching that. So I get to teach on the beach each week. And then, I sub here and there at a local dance studio. So I still have a little interaction with people, which I love. But I have my online community that we've, grown together through everything. I've been able to stay connected that way. I also have, a free Facebook group. I have a lot of free resources. I knew that I was personally struggling during COVID, mentally, because I am kind of a social butterfly, if you can't tell. And I knew other people were struggling as well. People just kind of reached out like, I have no motivation. I have no accountability. Where do I go? What do I do? I was like, I've got to create something where people have this connection online. And with the way that the world has changed during the pandemic, I feel like it's so important to have that, because now that summer's here and you've got kids at home, even if your kids were back at school full time, kids are home now, so I can't just leave my kids and go work out in the mornings like I may have been able to before. So what can I do at home? How can I get this in 30 minutes? And I've seen so much success just with people wanting not information necessarily fast, but condensed. Take all of this stuff on Google that I don't have time to sort through and condense it into how it's going to work best for me. What do I specifically need? And, instead of going to the gym and, driving 15 minutes to get to the gym, 15 minutes back, 30 minutes to shower after, here we are, and your workout might be an hour or whatever. Let's condense this down into 20 or 30-minute workouts that we can do, 5 or 6 days a week, condense it for me. So I've really enjoyed being able to, help people where they're at, especially with how the world's changed. So I'm beyond thankful for everything that happened, as much as I miss my guys in my studio, but we're still connected.
Yes. Okay. And so kind of going back to the condensing and the simplifying, because I think that's an important thing for so many people, especially when, again, there's no background of health and fitness and somebody's overwhelmed by everybody that they're hearing information from, right? That's one thing that, we have social media and we have articles at our fingertips, and there's just so much information available, which is great, but then it just leaves more to sift through. And so do you take equal parts things like the health coaching and the fitness? At this point, your actual program is equal parts, kind of a little bit of the integrative, the fitness aspect, and then the spirituality kind of mindfulness. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And we actually go through the de-stress protocol that Dr. Cabral teaches about, because I think that's so important. But I kind of take the supplements and combine it in with just the overall health, integrative health. There is lab testing. I'm, a level 2 integrative health practitioner. So we do lab testing for clients who want it in there so we can really customize their programs. But it is a small group. We're at 13 women right now. And that way everybody gets to know each other and can create that community, create that lateral pressure, create that accountability, and just get to know people. I think, especially as women, there's so much competition, especially with what you see on social media, that it's so important to build each other up and celebrate each other's wins. And I've learned with the group coaching program, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know until somebody asks the question. So we've learned so much. So many people are like, oh, I didn't even know I had that question. And it's just really helped each other to be together.
Yes. Yeah. Oftentimes just what you learn from somebody else's, question ends up giving you information that you didn't even know you have. You have 13 people in a room all asking a different question. Now everybody's learning 13 different things, which is, so helpful. So I'm curious if you kind of had, we were talking about a little bit about this when we first signed on, if you had, 3 pieces of advice that you wanted to kind of elaborate on for other coaches, as far as kind of what you could narrow it down to, maybe lessons learned the hard way, so to speak, of, kind of inspiration or suggestions that you could make that maybe they wouldn't have to learn the hard way, that things you've kind of gone through, what would those be?
Yeah, definitely. The first thing that I definitely learned the hard way, and I'm still working on, I'm not even gonna lie, is really just filling up my cup. We preach to our clients, make sure you get in your workouts, make sure you're eating healthy, but make sure you're doing that as well. So one thing that I say is, like Dr. Cabral talks about, start with a morning routine, start your morning out, ease into the day. For me, I've previously had thyroid adrenal hormone issues. So, my lemon water with my greens, with pink Himalayan sea salt is super important for me. And I, read my devotions and kind of ease into my day. And I think we tell our clients that, but then, we wake up and we're boom, ready to go out the door because we're so excited. And that's great. But make sure to, really fill up your cup and have your me time. And, always a great thing to do with your morning routine is always keep learning. Make sure you're reading, make sure you're engaging. You are the expert, to your clients, but you can always learn more, and you can always learn how to teach it better too. That's one thing that I'm focusing on now, is learning how to teach better, because all the information's up here, but getting it out here, it sounds like mouth diarrhea a lot of the times.
Yes, yeah.
Some other things that I think are super important, just playing off that, is work-life balance. I always am a big fan of a Sabbath day, a day off, the 12-week year. I'm a huge fan of the 12-week year. And I kind of break it down a little differently. So what I like to do is, work hard for 3 months on a launch of a big project, or, for me, I'm in pageants in Mrs. North Carolina, United States. So, 1 month or 3 months might be, pageant focused really, really hard. And another 3 months might be group coaching focused or whatever. And then just kind of have 1 month to ease off the gas. So, accelerate hard and then ease off the gas a little bit, like we tell our clients again, same thing, make sure that you're not go, go, go all the time and burn out those thyroid, adrenal hormones, all that stuff. So that's super, super important. And I know for me, one of the last points would definitely be your authentic self. I've struggled with this over the years. And it's one thing that I regret, but at the same time, I've learned so much is, share your story. There's pieces of my story that everybody has a story, so I won't go into mine today, but I haven't shared quite yet, or kind of hinted around that, but not really hit on the pain points. And I think people want to hear that you're not perfect. People don't want to see, the face-tuned, photoshopped, Instagram perfect model. They want to see, oh my gosh, I had some tacos yesterday, I'm kind of bloated, or oops, I might have eaten a whole row of Oreos, or whatever it may be. Be your authentic self and admit your mistakes. That's one thing that I'm learning how to do a little bit better, is just admit where I'm wrong. I am by no means perfect, and I've learned to admit my mistakes, and that I'm still learning. For my group coaching program, there was a little button on my MacBook. I got a new MacBook, and I found out there's a little button that has a little lock on there. So I couldn't share my screen, and I was messing with it like live forever. And it was just kind of turned out funny, but I was like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And, finally 45 minutes later, after the presentation, after Googling for 45 minutes, we found out there's a little lock button. You have to hit the lock button. Fun fact, to fix that. So, admit your mistakes, laugh at yourself. I've learned to do that, especially with Zoom and, going online and virtual. I'm actually not as technologically savvy as I think that I am. I am pretty good, but not quite as good as I think I am. So learn to laugh at yourself when you don't know how to share your screen on Zoom. And I think there's so much healing when you do that, and healing when you tell your story, and healing, as you teach. One of the best ways to learn is to teach. So, it kind of goes back into what we talked about earlier is, you heal as you teach, and you don't have to be the expert in everything, but there is always room to learn, and how you teach, learn how to teach better. And have fun. Like, most of all, we are so blessed to be able to have careers in the fitness industry, and as a yoga instructor, as a massage therapist, or whatever. Our careers are literally to help others, and it's such a blessing. And people look to us as role models, and people look to us as their inspiration. And that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. That means that you have to try. So don't forget to try for yourself and try for others.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that ties back into kind of you talking about being your authentic self. And my guess is, that talks a lot about both social media, but probably in your groups too, right? Because these women show up to kind of feel supported. And I think specifically with women, I would say men feel this way too. They're maybe just not as conscious of it, is that we feel this kind of sense of belonging and trust when we feel like we're kind of like around our people, right? And because none of us are perfect, when we show up somewhere and like the leader is acting like everything is perfect and they are perfect, it's so much harder to relate, right? And it's so much harder to kind of let our guard down and say what may be on our mind, or being able to kind of show up as our authentic self in a group setting when the leader's kind of holding this standard of perfection, right? So I'm sure you offer that for all of your group clients. But I'm curious, kind of your social media. So I think you probably meant that it applies to social media as well. And I think you have a fair amount of social media followers. What can you share with the listeners, kind of like how you show up there as your authentic self? Like, what does that mean? Does it mean that you're doing silly stories, or is it just about your posts and kind of offering information that way?
Yeah, a little bit of both. There's a lot of stories about my dogs. And recently, like I said, we moved to the coast. So there's lots of stories of reptiles and the encounters I've had with reptiles and how I don't do really well with nature. So there's a lot of laughing at me on there. But I think people like to see that side as well as the informational side. For a post that I might put out about heavy metal toxicity or something like that, there's a story behind it about how I may have been struggling with heavy metal toxicity, or hey, here's my lab work that I messed up on, or whatever that goes along with it, or there's snakes in my backyard, whatever it may be. But people like to see both sides of that. And I definitely started off as a fitness competitor in the fitness field, and grew my social media following as being this, oh, I'm a fitness competitor, da 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 da. But there were people there, but there wasn't the engagement when I was trying to be perfect. And you're gonna mess up doing whatever you do on social media, or teaching, or as a personal trainer or as a group fitness instructor, whatever. But any content that you get out there is always editable. And one piece of advice I have when you're writing content is write first, edit later, get it out there, and then go back and edit, repurpose your content, record it, and reuse it. But and that way you can use it through Facebook, through Instagram, all of that stuff, and develop those together. But really get that community engagement, ask questions, find out what people want to know. Again, just learn from your mistakes. That's one thing, and share your story. That's one thing that I'm still personally working on. I think why I keep going back to that at that point. But just be you.
Yes. Yeah. And like we said, being you and sharing your story, I think for a lot of people, they worry, okay, like who might this offend? Who's this going to be too much information for? Who is this going to, what have you? How is this going to make other people feel? How will that affect who follows me? But I always say, like, whoever is there for a reason. For everybody that doesn't resonate with your story, there's going to be 10 people that do. And you're going to then attract a more authentic audience where you can then be yourself. It's almost kind of like, well, it's good to weed out anybody that wouldn't identify with your truth and your authenticity, because it allows for room for people that do. And then you have a space that feels somewhere where you can be yourself.
You are so correct. And I mean, in years past, I think we've all dealt with a bully at some point in time. And now, especially with COVID and stuff, there's so many cyber bullies. And I've learned that hurt people. And I've dealt with it a lot. Like, people feel that they could say, oh, you've gained weight. Okay, like, oh, who are you to say that? Or you don't know this, or you don't know that, or you're not doing this right. And as much as it hurts, I think it's important to remember that hurt people. And normally, the people that are pointing a finger at you, yes, have fingers pointing back at them, but normally they're pointing out a point in their life that hurts on them, or that they haven't worked through yet, or something like that. So, just because somebody hurts you doesn't mean that you need to respond and hurt. And being able to sleep at night, even if somebody was being a cyberbully meanie, is well worth it to be able to sleep at night and know, in your hardest of hearts, that you're a good person and you're here to help people.
Yes. Yeah. And everybody, I feel like whole social media realm, it kind of like, people think that if you are on social media and you have a lot of followers, that it automatically entitles them to then be able to criticize you. And it's like, no, 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 this is my page. This is what I'm sharing. This is what I'm doing. This is my body. This is my education. You can come and enjoy it, or you can go and not enjoy it. And I think that that's something too, that as our listeners are building practices and whatnot, it's important to remember that it's your page and people will like it or they won't. But people that are going out of their way to be outwardly mean, I think, are exactly with what you said, is they're dealing with something, in my opinion, like so horrible inside that, like, I can't even imagine writing a horrible mean comment to somebody that I don't know. Certainly, not somebody, but can you imagine just reaching out to a stranger and saying hurtful words because, I don't know, they gained weight? It's just, that person clearly is going through something super troubling.
Yeah, you're so right. And it does hurt, but at the same time, for every meanie on there, you have 20 people to back you up. And I think that your crew, your tribe, your followers, see that, yeah, you're not perfect, but hurt people. And just because you have 10,000 followers, 20, 30,000 followers doesn't mean that people aren't mean to you. And with that social media following or whatever it may be, comes responsibility to show people that people can be mean, and the way that you respond is on you, not on them. And when you try and hurt somebody, it's like trying to, what's the saying, drink your own poison, or whatever the saying is. I can't think of it right now, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It hurts you to hurt people more than it hurts them.
Of course. Yes. Yeah. And retaliation never does anything for you. It just, yeah, prolongs your healing process. But I always say, like, my gosh, like, I am praying for you. It's almost like, wow, that's a troubled person. Like, I hope they at some point find what they need to, yeah, live a happier life.
Yeah. Unforgiveness. That's what it was. Unforgiveness is like trying to give somebody else your poison, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yes. And forgiveness too, for an apology that maybe you'll never get. That's a huge thing that I've learned over the years, is forgiving people for whatever may have happened, even though they may never be able to or capable of apologizing, frees you of the burden of the situation, whatever it may be, and kind of the ability to move on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, makes for some great content to be your authentic self when you can talk about it and say, hey, I get hurt too. What's hurting you guys? What's hurting, my followers? What's hurting my group? What's hurting my clients? Because once you kind of break through those barriers, you can work so much deeper when you don't have those speed bumps in the way. So,
yes. Yeah, of course. Okay. So let's switch gears a little bit. I'm curious if you have like specific podcasts that you like, books. We know you've gone through IHP, you've maybe read The Rainbow Effect, but is there specific books or podcasts that you kind of turn to for daily or weekly education, knowledge, motivation that you'd like to share with our listeners?
oh, there's so many. Mindset by Carol Dweck is a great book, and it just talks about how to break out of the victim mentality. And I really like that. That's something that I struggled with, dealing with health issues previously, is, oh, poor me, I can't do this because of this, or whatever. Breaking free of that and learning that you are in control of your own life, and the way that you relate to an experience is on you. But that experience, like Dr. Cabral talks about, focus on what you can change, not what you can't. So shifting that mindset was huge, and being in the growth mindset is huge, and learning from your mistakes. Let's see what else. I love some of the classics. How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Power of Positive Thinking. There's 10,000. Start with Why. That's a good one. Honestly, anything that Dr. Cabral recommends on his Friday reviews, I try and add to my reading list. So huge one. But of course, number one book, Green Barrel Effect. If you haven't read it yet, whatever field you're in, it applies to everybody. That one was one of my big life changers.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. So what I would be interested in you elaborating on, because I think it's a really interesting topic for especially our listeners to kind of hear and maybe think of their own way that this could apply to them, is you had mentioned that teaching is often a tool for learning. And just by you teaching, you're also learning. And I kind of have my idea of what that would mean and look like, but I'm curious for you, so I don't put words in your mouth, curious for you to kind of share what you meant by that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it kind of goes twofold. I know for me personally, as I've been, creating this group coaching program, creating the PowerPoints and all of that stuff and content and all of that stuff, that I've had to go back through, IHP level 2 and, dive deep into why exactly do we detox, or, the biomarkers on an organic acid test or whatever it may be. I've had to relearn stuff in order to, yeah, it's up here, but in order to get it out. And, through personal training, I learned, so, I was so nervous. My first client, like, oh my gosh, what if they know more than me? What if they, what if they've worked with another trainer before? Like they probably, know more than I do, or whatever. Or I don't know everything, that I can't remember everything that I learned, or whatever it may be. But I learned that, no two clients are the same, and you really do learn from experience. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know until it comes up, and, you're the expert to that client. And just because you don't know the answer right off the top of your head doesn't mean that you can't help them, because there are resources, out there. There's, find a mentor for yourself that, you can ask, whether that be somebody, in your gym, or, maybe your fitness, fitness manager, or whatever it may be. Or, if you're a health coach, maybe another health coach. Or for me, my chiropractor is huge into integrative health and functional medicine. So I turn to him for a lot of stuff that I don't know. So I do think that, we learn by teaching others, because we have to go back and relearn in order how to teach, but we also, come up with new experience. We have different experiences that teach us new things.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And that kind of brings me to when you said, oh, my first client, and I kind of started in the health and wellness field the same way. I was at first a personal trainer, and I used to kind of do something similar. I mean, somebody would come in and I don't know, their left toe hurt and so did their right pinky. And so I was like, okay, well, let me see what this could be related to. And by teaching them, right, what things were related to, I was learning at the same time. And then the next client who came in and had the same issue, I was like, yep, I know this. And all of a sudden, like, you just build your like arsenal of expertise in so many things simply by, like you said, trying to teach the client what to do about whatever issues are coming up, because you've done the research, you've learned, and now you kind of have that knowledge going forward. Whereas if you were like, oh, sorry, not sure, and kind of took the less confident road and maybe let some of that bigger stuff scare you out of the industry, well, now you're back to square one, and you're not constantly learning in a way that you can be sharing it with clients.
Yeah, definitely. And, you're not helping others when you quit on yourself and you quit on your clients. And, you can always, of course, refer to your doctor. Yeah, that's great. But refer to your doctor. Let me ask somebody and get back to you on that. Is, people don't remember what you said, but they remember the way that you made them feel. And, if you don't have the answer right away, your client knowing that you're going to go out and look for that information, even though you don't already know, means so much. Like, somebody else really does care if they're not taking the 45-minute training session, just the 45-minute training session. I think that also goes into, we are here to help. And, one great piece of advice I also have is check in on your clients, even when they're not your clients. Just because they aren't currently paying you, doesn't mean that you can't still be friends. And those people always do come back around. And word of mouth is the best referral. And, I haven't spent a lot of money on marketing, and I get most of my clients through word of mouth, but those clients are fiercely loyal and always keep you in mind. And it's just so wonderful to be able to help others.
Yes. Yeah. And the point about kind of having people remember the way you make them feel. I mean, that is why I think probably a great majority of all of us do what we do. Is at the end of the day, we just want people to feel hopeful. We want them to feel better about themselves, about their health, have more energy. And But that also goes into, I care enough about you that like I am going to go do some extra work because this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not doing it just for paycheck. I'm doing it because I want you to feel and get better. And you can decipher information a heck of a lot easier than somebody who's your client who's maybe in like computer sales, right? You can look at this information and go, oh yeah, okay, this is what this means. I know what's going on, and refer it back to them in a much easier way. And it takes kind of the stress of them doing the digging off, and you're able to help them and they're able to get the information. But then the really great part is that you learn in the process. If they just left the gym and figured it out on their own, well, now you still don't know the answer, but by teaching them, you're learning, which kind of goes back to our point.
Definitely. And I think it's so important to, really branch out. Like I said, I was in the fitness industry for a decade and, knew nutrition, but I could tell you the calories in an apple or, how many sugars were in blah, 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 whatever, don't eat artificial sweeteners. That's great. But, through learning through IHP, I've been able to help clients who, still couldn't lose the weight, even though they were working out with me, 4 days a week for an hour or whatever it may be. I've been able to help the people like me who thought they were doing everything right by, eating healthy and, doing all the right things, but still weren't getting the results. And, by digging deep into my lab work, I was able to see, the issues that I had with candida bacterial yeast overgrowth and, heavy metals and so forth and so on. But, I do challenge everybody, whatever field you're in, to really branch out. I've learned so much from my chiropractor. That is not my field by any means, but I've been able to help so many clients by, like you were talking about the toe incident, the issue could be ankle instability. I've been able to learn so much through that. Sport specific is not my niche. But I've been able to learn so much to help others in that. And I've been able to learn so much from a good friend of mine that's a massage therapist that's taught me so much about anatomy, but as well as, again, your neck might be bothering you, but it could be a shoulder issue or, it could be over about a whack or something like that. So I do challenge you to branch out, of course, know your niche and, sharpen that niche as much as you can. So I like to think of the niche as like an arrowhead and a bullseye. So if you aim for the middle, you're going to hit all the way around. But if you really sharpen that arrow and drive deep into that niche, that arrow penetrates instead of bouncing off that bullseye. And the deeper that it penetrates, the sharper it is, the deeper it penetrates, that arrowhead gets even wider. So really do know your niche, but branch out to be as well-rounded as you can, whatever field you're in, because it all, it's all about helping people and it all plays off of each other.
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, the nice part about our industry is if you're taking care of yourself, right? If we, walk the walk and talk the talk and we're doing all the things, having the people that help you on yourself also become part of like your expert, like you said, your chiropractor and your massage therapist. I mean, same thing. I love my chiropractor. He's, a wealth of information, and he kind of thinks a little bit, different. He's more of like into like breath work, and he's a male, so he thinks more about like anatomy, whereas I think more like heart. And it's just a different take on things, and all of that information can totally apply. So while I'm getting an adjustment, we're also like chatting about health and fitness, and you can learn that so much that way, and keep your friends and your colleagues and anybody that's kind of in your world who's health minded, using them as just your arsenal of information is a great way to kind of continue learning, and learning in a fun way that also serves you.
Totally. My chiropractor, his front desk staff always has to pop his door whenever I'm in there, because we'll be talking and I'll walk out, with the face imprints from where I'm trying to open my mouth and I'm face down forever because I'm running my mouth. We're chatting about something or peptides or whatever it may be of the day.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. So share with our listeners where they can find you on social media, a website that you may have. Kind of give them the little rundown of where you can be found.
Yeah, definitely. So first place to go would be my website, www.breasharron, that's BreaSharr, 2 R's, on.com. And over there is my personal website, and there is a free gift for everybody over there. It is a clean copycat cookbook that I wrote of my restaurant favorites made healthy. So that's free over there. And my big cookbook will be coming out soon once I stop editing and adding new recipes and stay out of the kitchen long enough to send it over to formatting. I had to go ahead and hire my formatter so I would stop creating stuff and finally get it out. Take my own advice. I'm over on Instagram at Brea Sharron Fitness, spelled the same way, Sharon with 2 R's. Facebook, Brea Sharron Integrative Health and Fitness. I don't really get on Twitter that much. Everything from Twitter is kind of copied over from Instagram and Facebook. TikTok's it's a hot mess too. It's part of my home renovations. Every now and then you'll get some health stuff, but it's a lot of my dogs. But yeah, pretty much my website's the big hub.
Great. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast. It was such a pleasure. And I'm glad the listeners got to hear everything you had to say.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun. And thank you guys for being such a blessing in my life and so many other practitioners and trainers and therapists out there.
Yes, our pleasure. It's what we love to do, and we feel honored to be in the position to do it. So our pleasure. Thanks, Brea.
Thank you.